looking at our screen here, we have a little chart. On this chart, it says we have events, contacts, and programs. And the way our accounting system or our billing works is in a cone. Everything at the top filters its way down to the bottom, and we're going to go through that. That's exactly what we're going to be going through today. On the bottom is the main transaction page. The main transaction page would be somewhat of a summary of your entire organization, all your events, your programs, your preschool, any campaigns, fundraising campaigns that you had. Everything would come in the main transaction page, and the main transaction page can be found either on your dashboard. You just go to your dashboard, and on the bottom it says transaction history. If you click on the transaction history, this is a summary of your entire, this is a dummy account, but it would show you a summary of your entire organization. Here you have the total payments, charges, and then the total on the bottom is a grand total, in this case, of $22. You could also find your main transaction page by clicking the top, the My Account, and then scrolling down to just to where it says main transaction history. It's the same page. That's the transaction page. Now here, if we go back to our little chart, we have contacts. Contacts billing can be found in our database just by clicking on contacts, this middle tab right here. The contacts tab generally shows you a list of all your contacts. When you click on select a contact and you click your billing, that's exactly what we're talking about here when we say this contacts page on the chart. So this is a contacts billing page. If you look at the top here, it says contacts, member billing, Donald Goldstein. And sometimes you can select multiple contacts. We'll hopefully touch on that towards the end of the webinar. So if I can select multiple contacts and then press billing, it's going to tell me the same thing: contacts, members billing, and then a list of all the contacts that we are talking about today. So that is the contacts page. From this contacts page, you could take a payment by clicking take payment, and you can send an invoice. Generally, there's two things. We're not going to talk about tickets today. We'll talk about just the expense and the pledges and the payments and the donations, funds and donations. So expenses and pledges generally come up as red, and the blue is for donations and pledges. And that's very simply your pluses and your minuses. Here on the bottom, it shows payments of $151, charges of $1,450. We're not going to get into the total owed. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But your grand total of everything here together is 12,999. It's 1,299. If we go on our little graph here and we go to the events billing page, simply click on your events tab right here at the top, select an event and click on the billing. This billing page that we are showing right here is the billing page that we are talking about. And this page is empty, but this is the billing page that we are talking about on this graph. So here on the top it says events billing, and it says the name of the event, Shavuos. From here, you could add expenses to the event. Let's say an expense to an event would be something like food that you purchased, or entertainer, or a rental, anything that you actually you had to spend for that event. And then payments would be any money that came into that event, money that was not given through a contact, but money that came in through other venues or other ways, not through an actual contact, somebody giving a donation or paying for the event. The programs is the same thing. So if I click on programs, it's in this exact order here on the chart, the way it is in the actual database. So if I clicked on a program, here we have a dummy program called ERT, and I said just select the billing sign right here. Also, here's a summary of this program's billing, and here it's going to list for us all the expenses, all the payments, and we'll show you how that works in just a bit. So again, on our chart here so far, we went through events, contacts, and programs. Now you can understand that all the expenses to the program and all the payments to the program are going to filter through and show on the main transaction page. So let's jump over to this chart right here. And all these charts we're going to make available on the forums after the webinar. I will also have a recording of the webinar available on YouTube so that you can watch it over. So on this chart, we're showing the actual flow. Over here, we're going to show that all the payments that we add to a program filters through to the main transaction page. So for whatever reason and however any payment came to a certain program, let's say it's your preschool, that money is going to be deposited into the main folder, the main Moseds folder. Now, if there's an expense to a program, let's say you had to pay in our preschool example, you had to pay a teacher, or you had to pay for supplies or office supplies. That expense is going to carry through down to the bottom of the cone to the main folder, the main transaction page. And the same things with events. If you have an event, all payments to the event is going to be filtered through to the main transaction page. All expenses are going to be filtered through. And before we go to the contacts and I'll explain to you how that works, let's try it out. So here I'm on a program called ERT. I'm going to add an expense. Let's say this is supplies, or let's say office, and it's $200. I just hit enter. So right now we can see on this event here, we could see a total of $200 is minus 200. Now, if I go to my main transaction page, which is the bottom folder, the bottom of the cone, let's see if we find it. Right here, perfect. Right here, we see that expense that was added to that program, and it gets calculated into the main total. And let's jump over to the event and show you exactly how that works as well. So if we go to the event Shavuos, and we go to the billing page for Shavuos, and here let's say there was some money that was given. There was a refund from something that we paid, and it was $150. I'm just going to hit enter. So here the total for this event so far is $150. So let's go back to our main transaction page, our transaction history page, and now we see the grand total here is the $150. The refund is added here, and it shows here on the grand total as well. You have all these little filters on the top, so we're going to get to that in a little bit. You can filter out events or programs. You can filter out expenses. You can look at just your donations for the entire Mosed altogether. But the point of this main page is to show you a summary of everything altogether. If you want to look specifically at a program, at let's say your preschool, let's edit this. I'm going to show you how that's done, just for argument's sake, to show you what a preschool looks like. So if you want to look at what's going on in your preschool, you'll just select the preschool and click on the billing, and then it would show you the summary for the preschool there. And we're going to talk about contacts and tickets in the preschool, how people actually make payments to the preschool and how that gets filtered through. Now, if we go back to our chart, so that was pretty simple. Any expenses, any funds, you have multiple folders, and by having multiple folders, that allows you to filter things and to look at things from many different angles and aspects, look at different types of reports. Not necessarily, we saw that a lot of people were just adding expenses to their main transaction page. We don't really suggest that. And even if you have, let's say, building expenses, we don't suggest that you go to your main transaction page, which is just going to your transaction page and add an expense. You can do that. However, that's a little bit more risky. You can just click expense and add an expense, let's say for your electric or for your mortgage. That's a little bit more risky just because it's not going to allow you to filter that out, and you're not going to have as many options as you do if you create a program. Even if you create a program called building expenses and then add all the expenses in there, or let's say for preschool you would add gas, or for teachers and so on in the actual folder of preschool. So a good habit is to go every single time into the folder that you want to add that expense or a payment or any funds that came in to the program itself, and not to a main transaction page. Basically, in other words, the higher you can go up on the cone, the more options you'll have when you actually need to pull the data from the database. So going back to our little chart here, we talked about programs, we talked about events. Contacts is a little bit different, and let's explain to you why. So if we go to our contacts page, and Mr. Donald Goldstein wants to give a donation. Here we can see he has a test donation of $50. That $50 donation obviously is going to be added into the main transaction page because his $50 is a plus to the general Mosed, and that plus is going to be added to the totals at the end of the month that we were profitable X amount. However, if we add an expense or a pledge to Donald Goldstein of $100, very simply, that expense stays with Donald Goldstein, and it's not an expense to the Mosed, but it's an expense to him. So if we go to the main transaction page, we're not going to see an expense that shows $100 because this expense is Donald Goldstein, and Donald Goldstein owes that $100. And here you can see at the bottom, and we're going to go through the total owed again in a second. So he has total payments, $50, charges is $100, total owed is $100. We'll get to that why in a little bit, and the grand total is minus $50. Let's go on a little bit above that. We're going to go to the, if you see on our first chart here, we had contacts. Inside each folder of programs and events, there's contacts. The way it works is that you can go to contact and you just select a contact and you press the move button, and you can move contacts in and out of events and programs. You can select multiple contacts and move those contacts into any event or program. So you would just come here, you'd select whichever groups or programs you want to move them into, and you can press move or remove. Once you go into an event, so here, for example, again, here we have our Shavuos event. Inside the event, it's going to show us a list of all our contacts, and that's exactly where we're at up here on the top of this chart. So on the top of this chart right here is where we are inside an event, inside this event called Shavuos. So if I select Donald Goldstein and I select his billing account information in Shavuos, here it says it's going to show me only the details of Donald Goldstein inside Shavuos. So if you recall a second ago when I went to Donald Goldstein on his main contact page, I selected Donald Goldstein and I clicked on his billing page, his accounting information. Here it shows me a bunch of stuff. But if I go to Donald Goldstein inside the event, it's not going to show me anything because for Shavuos, Donald Goldstein doesn't owe any money. He owes that money, or he made those payments towards other folders. So therefore, it's not going to show it to me here in this folder. But if I have to go a step down to more general, or more down to the source a little bit more, the bottom of the cone, to find those details. But to Shavuos, Donald Goldstein has nothing. So now, let's say Donald Goldstein, he wants to add a donation to Shavuos. So let's say he sponsors the ice cream, and he's going to sponsor the ice cream for $100. Let's just select this as a donation, hit enter. So now this $100, it shows that Shavuos, Donald Goldstein gave $100. Let's go down the chart, and here's the chart we're talking about now. It's not that complicated, a little bit more arrows, but it's not really that complicated. The payments that we just added to Donald Goldstein is a plus to Shavuos. So the donation that he just gave for the ice cream means that Shavuos was just profitable, a plus of $100. So let's go to the event called Shavuos, and let's see if that $100 is there. So I'm just going to go to Shavuos. This is a list of all my events. I'm going to select Shavuos. Then I go to the top here to Shavuos's billing, and here we have the refund of $150 we added before, plus the $100 donation that Donald Goldstein gave. The total that came in here is the $250. And the same thing as if I go to another contact, I go into Shavuos, and let's see, this time Matthew Miller. Matthew Miller decides that he's going to pay for an aliyah for Shavuos, and he pays $18. So Matthew Miller's total inside Shavuos is $18. If we go back to the event and we select the event's billing, very simply, it's going to show us that $268. We have the refund, we have the aliyah, and we have the ice cream. Now, if we add an expense, let's go back to our chart here, and if we add an expense to a contact inside Shavuos. Let's say we're selling tickets, or we're selling people are paying for dinners on Shavuos. That expense is not going to be carried to the event, which is not going to be carried onto the main transaction page. Again, for the same logic that if Donald Goldstein owes money to us, to the organization, that expense stays with him, and it's not an expense that we have to pay out. So that is a minus to him and him alone, but not a minus to the event itself. So if I select Donald Goldstein and I go to his billing page, and let's say he wants to pay for dinner, we're doing a Shavuos dinner, and the dinner is, let's say it's just 20 bucks. It's not a pledge. But if it was a pledge also, if he gave a pledge, it would also stay with him. So now we can see a total here of, the total here is, his total is 80 bucks. However, if we go back to Shavuos, we're not going to find anything about that that $20 that Donald Goldstein owes. The total still here is $268. If we add an expense, to Shavuos itself, let's say there's a food expense of $100. Now that expense is going to show here. And also, if you recall, where is that expense going to show? That expense for the event, going back to our chart here, is going to show on the main transaction page. So our total, this $100 also comes out of our total Moseds billing, or total, the main folder. Now, if we go to Donald Goldstein in a different program, let's try this and see what happens. We're going to go to Rosh Hashanah. And in Rosh Hashanah, Donald Goldstein, he is going to pay for his Rosh Hashanah seats. So let's say high holiday seats. And he pays $100 for his seats. Now that expense, again, is not going to show in the event, in the main event for Shavuos. Right now we're in Donald Goldstein in Shavuos. So if you see up here, we're looking at events, Rosh Hashanah, and Donald Goldstein. Only Donald Goldstein and only the expenses of Donald Goldstein only in that event. So it's only what Donald Goldstein owes to that event. So if you remember, Donald Goldstein, he owes 20 bucks, I think it was right, it was 20 bucks for Shavuos, and he owes 100 bucks for high holiday seats. We don't see the 20 bucks here. We only see the $100. However, if we look at the chart, everything that Donald Goldstein pays to any event, or anything that Donald Goldstein pays to any program, is going to carry through to the main transaction page. So if we click back here on the contacts tab, right in the center, we click on the contacts tab and we select Donald Goldstein, we go to his billing page. What are we going to see here? We see the expense, the high holiday seats for 100 bucks, and then we see the $20 fee. I can filter it here on the top, and you can filter it here by clicking unselecting donations. You don't have to see the donations if you don't want. You can unselect all events. You won't see any events. You can take out expenses, and that way you could filter it out a little bit. But here, this is Donald Goldstein's main folder. We call it his main accounting page. And here it's going to tell us a summary of everything from his preschool, from his Shavuos, from his events, from his programs, any tickets that you create, which we're not going to talk about tonight. Anything and everything that Donald Goldstein owes, and a total summary of all his donations and all his pledges are going to show down here on the bottom. And then we're going to get a summary of how much he owes total from all those folders altogether, which we'll go in again, it will go through in just a bit. So again, if just to summarize what we said so far, and this is a very simple, easy flow chart that we'll pass out and we'll make available after the webinar, is any funds to a contact, any payments at all that come in are always counted as pluses, whether it's a plus to a contact, whether it's a plus to an event folder, whether it's a plus to the main a payment or a donation to the main transaction main folder, main transaction page, that is always going to count as a plus, and it's always going to be carried through lower down the funnel. Expenses, however, only expenses to the events and to the program folders, to any of these folders here, these events and programs, are going to be carried through. Expenses to contacts don't get carried through to the main Mosed, for the very simple reason, again, that main Moseds main Moseds do not have the contacts do not have expenses. Their expenses are not a minus to the main company, but a minus and an expense to them and them alone. So what we'll do is what we'll talk about right now real quickly, and that's the basic idea of how the system works and how it does the calculations for you. Very simple, very straightforward. We took away a lot of the hassle of closing invoices and opening invoices. We keep the open invoice style, which means that every minus and every plus to a specific folder, one cancels out the other, and that's why while it makes it much simpler and much easier to navigate and to filter and to see the reports of your organization, it makes it extremely important to make sure that you put things in its right place. A lot of people just like to go to the main contact and just select Donald Goldstein and put in add in donation for Shavuos. We select plain old donation for Shavuos, or they type in check number 123 for building campaign, so on and so forth. That's not a very good thing to do. Yes, you can do that, but what you're doing is you're putting everything into one big mixed folder, and that's never a good thing. That's never a good thing to do. So that's basically how the system does the calculations for you. You also, by default, it only shows you the last 30 days. A lot of people get confused. So if you're going to add, technically speaking, if you're going to add a donation for 5 years ago, it's going to say added successfully, but it's not going to show it here on the screen because you have to actually go back to that date and you have to check it out. And what that does is that makes it a little bit more easier. You're not looking at the past 10 years of what this person gave and what he was, or what he still owes from maybe an event from 5 years ago. What we're going to talk about now is called the total owed. Total owed is it was a new little widget was implemented. A lot of shluchim had requested something like this a little while back, and we implemented it, and it's a great little thing to help you see what does a person owe. And the total owed is very simple. In each folder, besides for the pluses and the minuses, you have two separate, let's call them subfolders. And those subfolders is pledges and donations and expenses and payments, or funds as we call them. So again, in each folder, in each contacts folder, you have two subfolders. The subfolders each have in it a plus and a minus. The folder number 1 is pledges and donations. Folder number 2 is expenses and payments. And the way it works is very simple. If Mr. Donald Goldstein, we're going to start from scratch. I'm going to erase everything here, so his totals are going to show as 0. No payments, no charges, and total is 0. So if Mr. Donald Goldstein gives a pledge of, let me just move this thing away here. If Mr. Donald Goldstein gives a general pledge for, let's just say it's for a building fund, and he says he's going to give a pledge of $100. Select pledge and press submit. It shows payment 0, charges minus 100, total owed is $100. Now, his pledge of $100, but he decides to give a donation, or he decides to make a payment for his membership. So Mr. Donald Goldstein, he gives a membership payment of $100. We're not going to check that as a donation because it's not. This is just a payment towards his membership. Now, that membership shows payments 100, charges minus 100, his total is 0, but he still owes $100. And we can see he owes $100 because when we go to the main page, we see this little red dollar sign that shows us that he owes money. So if we go back to his billing page, we select his billing page, we need to figure out why he owes that money. So the way to do that is very simple. You can unselect, we want to unselect the funds here. And now we see, yep, he owes money. He has pledges out, but he has no donations to those pledges. There's no donations for those pledges. And it works the same way, the opposite way. So let's delete it again. Let's do it the opposite way. Let's try that. Mr. Donald Goldstein, he has an expense, or he owes an expense, which is membership. He owes membership for $100. So that's an expense to him, and now he gives a donation to the building fund of $100. That's a donation, and we press enter. So he has an expense he has to pay for membership, but he gave a donation of $100. Does he still owe $100? Yes, of course he does, because his donation of $100 is not going to cancel out his pledge. So what this does is this allows you, the total owed allows you to see how much he owes, notwithstanding the grand total inside this specific folder. And we have here a little, I'm going to show you a little right here. If you look right here on this Excel sheet, we have, this is the main folder. And inside the folder, if you remember, there's two subfolders. Subfolder number 1 for pledges and donations, and then subfolder number 2 here for expenses and payments. So on the top, he has a pledge of $100. He gave a donation of $50. What's the total that he still owes on his pledge? Total is $50. Sum, I-13 and I-14, the sum total is $50. The calculations here, if I change it to, let's say, $500, his total that he owes is $450. So that's going to calculate that for us automatically. So again, a pledge of $100. He gave a donation of $50. That's minus 50. His total that he still owes from that pledge is $50. Now, if he has an expense out, Donald Goldstein, of $100, let's say again it's membership, and he makes a payment towards that membership of $50, how much does he owe? Very simply, again, he owes $50. So in this case, what's the grand total that Donald Goldstein owes? The grand total that he owes is $100. And what that does is, if you look here, the sum total of subfolder number 1 and the sum total of subfolder number 2 is going to be added up in the total owed. So while the total that on the bottom of the page is going to show 0, because or it's going to show the total on the bottom of the page will show that he may have made a full payment, $100. If he made let's say he made a $150 donation, in the system, if he made a $150 donation, it's still going to show that he owes $50. And the reason for that is because in the expense side, he owes $50. It's not going to deduct from the total owed in subfolder number 2. And as we can see back here, that's exactly what it's showing here. So Mr. Donald Goldstein, he gave a donation of $100. He owes $100 membership. He still owes that $100, and this works the same exact way. In the events and in the programs, the contacts within the events and within the programs. So if you want to see how much Mr. So-and-so owes, Mr. Donald Goldstein owes inside an event, let's go to the events. Let's go into Shavuos, and let's see how much Donald Goldstein owes inside Shavuos. He owes nothing because we deleted it. But that's what the total owed widget does. You can see how much somebody owes. What we're going to say, we don't have much time left, but what we're going to say, we'll see if we can take some questions. And I'll show you a few little tricks. One of the things that we do is we consolidate folders. So if you select multiple contacts, select all. Right here, let's select all, and we click billing. Like we said before, that consolidates all these members together into one billing account. And here's the grand total for these people automatically put together for you on a silver platter. You don't have to think twice, and you can do this sitting in the bathroom, in the toilet, just from your mobile device on your mobile phone, exactly the same way. This is the mobile phone. It works extremely easy and very similar to the web version. We made it extremely easy, and that's our goal, to make things easier for you. It adds it up together. And what this does, this is a little trick here as well. Once you have everybody here in a consolidated folder, that might be for a family. You want to look at a husband and a wife, or children, or cousins and brothers, everybody with the same names, the dog, I don't know what. You want to look at all their stuff together. You could select the contacts that you want to look at together, and then you could just press billing. It's going to show you the billing for those people together. Again, we're consolidating the people here. Two little tricks that you can do is, let's say you want to charge everybody in an event, or you want to charge them $20, or you want to add a payment for multiple people at the same time. You could do it very simply. You want to select these 3 people inside the event, when you take a payment on a consolidated a billing page, let's say take a payment, that payment gets added to all those people. So Matthew Miller and Donald Goldstein are going to be added. We're going to add the donation to funds for these people, all these people together. So let's just do a test of $3. Now you can see $3 for Donald Goldstein, $3 for Matthew Miller, and $3 for Peter Fine. We just added those $3 to all those three people at the same time. If you want to add an expense, let's say all these people came into the event, entry fee of $10 or so we just added that to all those three people in one shot. And that becomes extremely powerful and helpful. If you have an event of 50, 60 people and you want to add to multiple people at the same time, you just literally select them down or select all. You go to their billing page and then you could add to them all at the same time with one click of a button. Another thing that the consolidated folder allows you to do, which is one of the most helpful things for Shluchim at the end of the year, is if you select all these payments. So let's say I just want to select, my donations. So I'm going to filter out and we'll look at just my donations, or let's just leave it at this. And I select everything here. Select all. And then I press send invoice. This is going to allow me, and it's going to split it up for me, allow me to send a summary, a thank you letter, an invoice, whatever you feel you want to. You could select the template that you want for a general donation template, an invoice template, a receipt template, and it's going to send to each person individually a summary. And what that does is that's extremely powerful, where at the end of the year, you could just search from, let's say, January 1st, 2015, and you go to date January 1st, 2016. You go to the end of the year, and here we go. Well, there's nothing in there because we just said it, but you'd be able to send all these people a thank you letter all in one shot with the click of a button. What it does is that if they do not have an email address on file, it'll send the summary or the thank you letters to everybody who has an email address on file, and then it'll tell you that the other contacts failed. You can look up to see, you can see their email history for everything that you sent out to them right here. You can send sent, failed, and printed. Here's a history of everything that was sent to that contact. So again, click on Donald Goldstein. You go to email history, and this is all the invoices that were ever sent him or thank you letters, any failed ones, and all the printed receipts that you ever printed and mailed to him. If you go to your dashboard, you have a general history for everybody together. It's consolidated, all the contacts or anything that was ever sent out from the system. It's all put together here, and it says invoices to this guy here. These are all just dummy emails, and it says all the failed letters that weren't get sent out because there was no email address, and all the ones that we ever printed. So that's how you. Those are two little tricks that you could do to make time go faster. And hopefully, Mark Hashem, we're going to have another webinar on ticketing, how to create tickets. Tickets is a really cool thing, and it allows you to basically create a set price for a certain ticket. You can create multiple tickets. You can create time-based tickets, so people get charged based on the amount of time that checked in or checked out to a certain event, and that allows you, instead of having to actually type in every single time a person has an expense, it allows you to just check off Mr. So-and-so took 2 tickets for X amount, and gives you a lot of power. On the mobile phone, everything's exactly the same the way we spoke just now. The layout is a little bit different than what it shows here in our charts. This is the total owed charts if we zoom into the contact we spoke about, but the layout's a little bit different on the mobile app. Some people, the feedback was that a lot of shluchim like using just the mobile app. They felt it was easier to navigate, but the contacts, everything looks exactly the same. So let's log in here to this dummy account. Real quick, here we have a list of Donald Goldstein, Matthew Miller. Same thing as if we go to his main billing account, Donald Goldstein will see all the main stuff here from Donald Goldstein together, consolidated, from all his events and all his programs together. If we go to our dashboard and we go to an event, Let's check out Shavuos. Shavuos, we want to see what the totals are in Shavuos. And from your phone, this is very helpful. From your phone, this is the main totals for Shavuos. From your phone, you can add expenses. So if you're going to the store shopping, a lot of times we forget receipts, we forget to put things in. I save a link to the events that or the programs that we do a lot of purchasing for. I save a link on my homepage on my phone, on my Android, and I just click on it. It takes me directly to this page right here. I just press add expense, and I'm able to be on top of the expenses and the payments that come into specific events. From here, you could also send invoices if you need to, or take payments. From the mobile app, you could take credit cards, and that's for another time, how to integrate credit cards. A big thing we're real excited, we're going to be launching in the next couple days is save credit cards. You'll be able to save credit cards to contacts. Guy wants to give you a donation. You'll say, no problem. Should I do that on card ending in 5432? And that's all it takes. You just click charge and it charges his card. That's a huge big, we're very excited, and that's going to be coming out. We're doing our final testing, and that's going to come out in the next few days. So let's see if we can take a question. Let's see here. Okay, we got a question about, can we use the system just for tracking donations? Absolutely, the system can be used just for tracking donations, and many people use it just for that. All they do is they put in all they put in is just the donations and just contacts, and then at the end of the year they export an Excel sheet with all those pluses or pledges, and then that's all they use it for. It's very simple, straightforward. One of the reasons why a lot of people like to use it just for that is because what it does is that there's a lot of automation. You're able to set up that every time a person gives a donation, it should send them automatically a thank you letter. And you can do that from your dashboard. If you go to your dashboard and you go to your email options, over here is a list of all your templates. And at the bottom of your template, you have an option for automatic or manual. And we have a little video in the getting started video. It shows you how that works. You select automatic or manual, and automatic would send out those thank you letters automatically. We have a few other questions we're not going to be able to get to today. However, if you send us an email, we'll be sure to answer you back. You could always text us. We're available for text most of the day, 716-562-8752. Again, 716-562-8752. We appreciate everybody joining us tonight, and we look forward to talking to you and seeing you guys the next time. Sei gesund.